Hi, it's Eddie. Welcome to Wheelie Tropicals. If you're one of the regulars, thanks again for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. What I'm doing today is preparation for how to get your plants ready, but also how to get your greenhouse ready for overwintering for the best chance of success. So without further ado, we're going to get at it. I'm going to include some top tips and tricks for the plants, things that you're bringing in, things to watch out for, as well as towards the end, what equipment that I actually use to make sure that the environment is the best that I can provide for the plants. Thanks for watching. First things first is the actual plant itself. As you can see on this one, it's got quite a lot of dead and decaying kind of leaves on there that are dying back. And I don't want to take those through winter. They're going to cause rot and they're going to stop with like the air circulation, things like that. So as much of this stuff as we can chop back, the better. And like I say, this isn't going to magically green up over winter anyway. A lot of these plants will shrivel back. So the first thing that you need to do is tidy up your plant. As well as that, if you're anything like me, I really don't like large spiders, and this thing is covered in cobwebs. So there's a good chance that I might jump screaming in a minute if there's a massive spider on there, but hopefully not. So I'm going to cut back all of this anyway. It'll give me a better idea of how to kind of keep an eye on the soil, because obviously you don't want to be watering too much over winter. A lot of these plants don't need anything at all, but obviously I won't be able to see the soil if there's all this garbage in there. So the very first point that I'm going to run over is make sure that you chop back all of the decaying leaves on that, and I'll come back to you once that part's done, and I'll move on to tip 2. So just to give you an idea, it's this kind of stuff that we're cutting back, completely gone. As well as that, there's like remnants on the back of it of like spiders' nests and things like that. And as those spiders are useful in the greenhouse, I don't want them on me, do you know what I mean? So it's personal choice. If they're up in the rafters eating flies, I ain't got no problems with that. I just don't want them to shock me by coming out underneath this pot and scaring the absolute life out of me. It's quite a small space to have a jump scare on there. So I'm going to keep hacking away at all these. Even like the big juicy looking leaves that are all yellowing off. Let's get rid of all the garbage, and then as per my other video, we can use these in other ways to like create some beautiful mulch for the garden as well, so none of this is going to go to waste. And there you go, a little bit of a glow up hopefully for the plant there. I've cut an entire bucket worth of those leaves away. An additional benefit is that plant hasn't got to support all that growth now over winter. So as well as it being a lot tidier, with hopefully less decaying matter in the bottom, there's still a lot of brown bits for me to cut off, but obviously I'm not going to bore you on camera with that. But basically trim back as much of the dead and dying decaying matter as that you can, and then obviously you're not storing a plant that's going to rot away over winter. You want to chop as much of that back as before we get going. Point number 2 I feel is a really solid point, and that is check the bottoms of your pots that you're bringing in. You would be surprised at how many slugs and stuff hide at the bottom underneath there. You'll find them quite often in the little channels, if you can see there. So check those things. The last things you want to be bringing into your greenhouse are things like slugs and pests and things like that, because we're bringing them in here so they start off really well. What we're not doing is trying to provide a free buffet for all the pests. In a greenhouse, in a closed environment, those things can get out of control as well, because there's no natural predators in here for them. Thankfully, up above me, there is a little nest of ladybirds, so it will bring the balance back, but quite often those pests will crack on all through winter, where those ladybirds look like they're hibernating at the moment, so they ain't going to be doing anything until spring. So chop away all the dead matter, just to make sure that it's as clean as possible. And then point number 2 is that we want to check on the bottom, check all the leaves, the backs of the leaves, for any things like aphids and things like that as well. And then I'll move on to point 3 now. It's to clean the greenhouse glass, as boring as that sounds, but it's a good time to refresh the greenhouse. I get the vacuum and stuff in here, brush all of the benches off to get rid of all the decaying matter and things like that. And the glass was covered in like green gunk the other day that I had to wash off the greenhouse glass. I was there for quite a while doing that to get it all off, as well as I used a spider mite spray, and that had kind of formed like this like waxy coat all over the glass, so it was really disgusting. But it will affect the amount of light that comes through, is my belief on that one. Even if I'm wrong, it's nice just to have a clean environment to work within as well. So I don't want to be surrounded in here. I've got asthma. I don't want to be breathing in. It could be like molds, could be a load of different things growing up on that glass, which I didn't want there. So give your greenhouse glass a nice bit of a clean, and I'll do the same thing in spring as well, just to kind of keep it looking its absolute best, and hopefully it will allow more lighting is my belief on that one as well. The next point's absolutely crucial, I believe, to the success of my greenhouse every year, and that is airflow. I've got an industrial sized fan that blows air all around the greenhouse. I tend to find it helps regulate the temperature as well, because which will be one of the next points coming up, talking about the heat inside. When you've got those little box heaters, they'll throw out heat within a small range. And I feel like having that airflow seems to kind of provide a more consistent temperature throughout the greenhouse, rather than having really hot and really cold spots within the greenhouse. So I feel like airflow is absolutely essential for that. I've got them above. I think you should just be able to see on the edge there, there's a blue one that goes into the Vitapod. There's another one on the other end, and like I said, there's an industrial one I'll put a bit of an overlay on at the moment. It's not looking its best at the moment, but like I say, when it's in a bit of a wet environment, they do seem to rust off quite quickly. But airflow, it's really useful because the plants need a constant supply of carbon dioxide in order to kind of breathe and to photosynthesize and do all that magic stuff that they do, as well as when the plants on the evening are kind of trying to breathe and get kind of like, I think it's called respiration, when they're trying to get rid of the excess water and things like that. The excess water droplets on the leaves can actually cause or help with things like bacterial growth and things like that, and like the fungus growth and things like that, molds. And I've just seen loads of plants that don't get a constant airflow, have all like mold on top of the soil, like grey and really minging stuff growing on there, and that's usually down to just a lack of airflow. So just getting a nice little bit of a breeze in there. If you've got a certain type of greenhouse that's got the vents that you can kind of slide up and they're kind of slotted, called like louve or whatever they are, louve windows, you can just crack that just a couple of times, because even through winter there'll be little spikes in there where you can just get a little bit of a 20 minutes, 30 minute of airflow into there to get rid of the stagnant air. I'm in and out of here all the time during winter, filming like the seed grow along and stuff, so I am opening the door constantly. Like I say, I will put that big fan on when I'm not filming the YouTube videos, as well as during the day I take the lids off the Vitapods and they have that airflow constantly on them. I only seal them at night. So airflow, I feel, is really critical, and the step that kind of a lot of people miss, especially with the little dinky heaters like I've just mentioned, not getting vast distance because they're designed for a lot smaller spaces. So moving on to the next point. So just to show, I've got quite a large looking fan down there that really does kick out some air. It's enough to blast all of the greenhouse, as well as above the Vitapods I've got these little dinky ones on both sides that just provide a little bit of airflow to the tops of these during the day. Okay, so one of the absolute critical elements is the heat side of things. So got two things that are linked with this. I'm going to show you two examples of heaters that I use. Look almost identical, but there's slightly different things to do with that, as well as a nifty little attachment that I found to be quite useful last year. So first things first, I've got my trusty one. This one you can set, as you can see, on a thermostat, the little wheel on the side, as well as what wattage that uses. I found to put it on the lower watt actually was quite useful. Put it on like 5 or 6 degrees, something like that, and it seemed to put a bit more air out. When I put it on the higher watt, it seemed to heat the air really quickly where the thermostat was and shut it off pretty quickly. So within a couple of feet it was quite warm, but if I walked a couple of feet down the greenhouse it still felt absolutely freezing. The difference is, and that one's from Simplicity. I don't know what brand this one is. It just says Lighthouse 2 kilowatt greenhouse heater from Hydro Garden. This one, as you can see, it's a bit of a newer model. Exactly the same layout as in the wattage and all the rest of it. The only difference is I thought this was broke when I first bought it, but this one doesn't kick off, so it's always on. So I thought the thermostat was broke on it. What it does is it'll get to the temperature, then the heating element will switch off and the blades will carry on spinning. So that's a really good option if you want to get the airflow and the heating from the same device. So rather than having a separate heater and then fan, you can literally have both of them combined into one unit. But like I say, it was a bit of a shock to me, the fact that it didn't ever turn off. But when you put your hand near it, you could feel that there was no heat coming from it, and it absolutely makes sense with the airflow being critical and the heat in that they're kind of built within the same unit. And I'll come to you now with an absolute game-changing device that I found extremely useful. So this was my absolute game changer that I didn't even know existed. And what this is a thermostatic plug that you can set. I can't show you because it obviously needs to be plugged in, but you can set it like to whatever degree that you want it to be. And then that stays on. You put your heater plug inside of that. And then what this does is whether your heater's got a switch on it or not, it's irrelevant now. And even if it has, this will kind of work anyway. So what you can do is instead of the thermostat device being as part of the heater, so if that wind's wafting around that heater, it'll kick off because it'll go, actually we've achieved 5 degrees, when over there it's 1 degree. This we can move a lot further away from where the actual heater unit is, and I have to have my heater in a certain place because the vitapods would burn if it's too close and the plants are really close here. So I have to angle it like on a diagonal to get a nice bit of airflow and let their thing kick it up. So I can put this diode about at least 1.5 meters further away than where it's designed to be. So I plug that in up there, plug the plug in, and then when it achieves the desired temperature over there, I know that the vast majority of the greenhouse then will hit that. I can put it high, low, wherever I want it to do. And this will then turn any of these into ones that have got thermostats. So you can buy a cheaper heater if you wanted to that doesn't have a built-in thermostat. Or if, like me, you're trying to bypass the one that's already built in there, you can set this to whatever degrees it is that you want, and then that will then keep running until this has hit that, and then this plug will turn off. So it's a really, really handy little thing. I think I just bought that off Amazon, so it wasn't anything like expensive or anything like that, and probably for the amount of electric it'd save from me just turning it on and trying to get, you know, the heating down the other end, X, Y, and Z. It'll probably be one of those wicked devices that'll actually pay for itself. So on to the next tip. So the very final point that I'm going to make is about watering. So where you want to keep the plants just ticking over, you don't want to be sloshing in loads of water and having the water running all out the bottoms of the pots, because a lot of these plants will go dormant, so they'll sit in that water and they can get a thing called root rot, which is very, very difficult to get a plant back from that. So water the plants as if they start wilting, or if the edges start going brown, yellow, you know, that kind of thing. Give them a little bit of a trickle over, but just to make sure that they're taking that water up. If you notice the plant pot's still soggy after about a week, I would repot the plant because it's clearly gone dormant and it's not using it anymore. The really interesting tip about the water is don't do it straight out of the tap or the water butt, because the water butt could be really freezing cold water. So then to come into your greenhouse and pour that really freezing cold water into your plant pots will most likely cause shock to the plant. It can cause like root disturbance and stop with like nutrient uptake, and loads of different negatives can happen as far as if you just use water straight out the butt, straight in. So what I tend to do is I get the couple of watering cans and I'll leave them in the greenhouse so it kind of acclimates to that kind of temperature, and then I'll do that. It only takes a couple of hours, and 9 times out of 10 I'll fill the watering cans up on the evening, leave them in, and then I'll come and water as and when's needed. So they'll probably be at that temperature anyway. But you'd be far better off to just let the plant be dry for an extra couple of days and let the water warm up than to be slushing it with freezing cold water. Hopefully those tips have been useful for you. Those are things that have helped me over the years of kind of losing plants over winter and wondering what was going on. So a nice mix of the different elements that I use. If you've got any questions on any of it, feel free to message. I've opened the community up on my channel as well. So that enables you to post on the community, and it also enables you to be able to put images on there as well. So if you want any advice on your setup or things that may be going right or wrong, feel free to put those in there as well. This is just based on my experience. So if you've done something different over the last 30 years, then obviously carry on with that. I'm just trying to help new people, or to maybe introduce some newer ideas as well. Don't forget to subscribe because it really helps my channel, and I'm on a quest to get to 1,000 as quick as I can. And if you made it this far, you're an absolute legend, and I really appreciate you. Thank you very much.